There is a strange, quiet absurdity in the fact that you are aware of this sentence right now. Somewhere behind your eyes, a 3-pound piece of matter is currently rendering a world, turning vibrations in the air into meaning and silence into thought. But if you pull back, the picture gets stranger. We're told that for billions of years, the universe did just fine without anyone noticing it. Giant clouds of gas collapsed into stars, galaxies drifted in the dark, and laws of physics played out with a cold, perfect precision. None of it required an audience. There was no one to witness the first sunrise on a cooling Earth, and no one to wonder why it was happening. And then, in a tiny corner of the vastness, the lights came on. Matter began to look back at itself. A universe that had been silent and indifferent for eons suddenly produced a creature that could ask, "Why am I here?" Usually, we treat this as a lucky accident, a random spark in the dark that doesn't really mean anything. But if you sit with it long enough, a persistent, unsettling paradox begins to form. How does a system with no apparent intention, no goal, and no plan keep producing versions of itself that are capable of reflection? Why does the void seem so determined to be seen? I've lived with this tension for a long time, this feeling that being conscious inside such a vast, beautiful, and seemingly indifferent space is somehow mismatched. In the next few minutes, I want to explore a reversal of that feeling. I don't have answers for you, and I'm not here to offer a new belief system or a grand theory of everything. I'm just a fellow traveler in this mystery, wondering if we've had the question backwards all along. What if we aren't just observers trying to understand the universe? What if we are the process by which the universe is finally beginning to understand itself? Let's look at this together, not to find a conclusion, but to see if we can inhabit the vastness a little differently. To understand the weight of this, we have to look at the sheer scale of the silence that came before us. If you compress the entire history of the universe into a single day, humans wouldn't arrive until the final few seconds before midnight. For almost the entire duration of the story, the universe was a theater with no one in the seats. Stars were born, lived for billions of years, and collapsed into black holes without a single mind to register the light or the heat. This is the standard scientific narrative, that consciousness is a very late, very fragile arrival, a thin layer of frost on a massive ancient mountain. But there's a problem with that story. Physics doesn't actually need us. Gravity doesn't need to be understood to hold a planet in orbit. Atoms don't need to be named to form a molecule. As far as the math is concerned, the universe could have gone on forever in total darkness, a perfectly functioning machine with no one inside to appreciate the gears. So why didn't it? Why did matter eventually start to organize itself into nervous systems? Why did the stuff of reality, the same carbon and hydrogen found in dead nebulae, eventually arrange itself into a shape that could feel pain or wonder or the specific ache of a sunset? If you look at the history of emergence, it feels less like a random accident and more like a persistent pressure. It's as if the universe is impatient. Whenever the conditions are even slightly right, life appears. Whenever life appears, complexity follows. Whenever complexity follows, awareness eventually flickers to life. It suggests that consciousness isn't a human invention, it's a structural habit of reality. And that's where the discomfort sets in. Because if awareness is unnecessary for the laws of physics to work, then its persistence is an anomaly. It feels like an itch the universe can't stop scratching. We've spent centuries trying to figure out how we fit into the universe, but we rarely stop to ask why the universe seems so intent on fitting into us. We feel like we're the ones struggling to understand the cosmos, but maybe we've overlooked something fundamental. Maybe we aren't the ones who are lost. Maybe we are the places where the universe is finally finding its way. When we talk about intelligence, we usually talk about it as something we have, like a prize we won at the end of the evolutionary race. We point to our cathedrals, our code, and our ability to solve equations as proof that we are the intelligent ones in an otherwise mindless landscape. But if you look closer at the edges of biology and systems theory, that boundary starts to dissolve. Take a slime mold, a single-celled organism with no brain and no nervous system. When placed in a maze with food at the end, it finds the most efficient path. It remembers where it has been. It makes decisions. It solves problems. It's not thinking in the way we do, but it is engaging in a process of feedback and correction. It is learning. We see the same pattern everywhere. We see it in the way a forest negotiates resources through underground fungal networks. We see it in the way colonies of ants exhibit a collective wisdom that no individual ant possesses. We even see it in the way our own immune systems remember a virus they haven't seen in decades. Intelligence, it turns out, isn't a status symbol reserved for creatures with large brains. It's a process. It's the way any system, biological or otherwise, takes in information, identifies an error, and updates itself to survive. If we stop looking at intelligence as a possession and start seeing it as a behavior, the entire universe begins to look different. The movement of evolution itself is a massive, slow-motion learning algorithm. It's a 4-billion-year-old conversation between life and its environment, where every failure is a lesson, and every survival is a piece of data stored in the DNA. And this is the pivot. If learning is something that reality does at every scale, from the smallest cell to the largest ecosystem, then why would we assume it stops with us? We aren't the owners of intelligence. We are just one of the ways it is currently expressing itself. We are a high-resolution version of a process that has been happening since the first atoms bumped into each other in the dark. This realization is humbling, but it's also a relief. It means we aren't accidents trying to be smart in a dumb universe. It means we are part of a continuity. We are a localized peak in a much larger landscape of learning. We've always thought of ourselves as the students, desperately trying to learn the laws of a fixed universe. But if intelligence is a universal process, maybe the laws themselves are still being written. Maybe the universe isn't a finished book we're trying to read. Maybe it's a draft that is still being edited through our very existence. For a long time, we've operated under the assumption that we are passive spectators. We think of the universe as a finished stage, and ourselves as the audience sitting in the dark, merely recording what happens in front of us. We believe that if we were to suddenly vanish, the play would continue exactly as it is, indifferent to our absence. But as we've pushed deeper into the fabric of reality, that neat separation between the viewer and the viewed has started to crumble. In the world of the very small, we've discovered that you cannot simply look at something without changing it. The act of observation isn't a neutral recording, it's an interaction. It's as if reality exists in a state of blurry potential until a measurement, a moment of awareness, forces it to pick a side. Scientists and philosophers have wrestled with this for a century, trying to find a way around the uncomfortable implication that the observer is somehow woven into the laws of physics. But what if the discomfort is the point? What if the reason it's so hard to separate the observer from the world is because they aren't separate at all? Think about how you experience a melody. A song isn't just a series of isolated notes. It only becomes music because your mind holds the memory of the last note while it hears the current one. You are participating in the creation of the melody just by listening to it. Without your awareness to bridge the gaps, it's just a sequence of silent, disconnected pulses. We might be doing the same thing with the universe. There is a growing sense in cognitive science that we don't just see the world, we predict it. We are constantly projecting our own internal models onto the void, and where those models meet the raw data of reality, an experience is born. We are not cameras. We are artists, rendering a world into existence in real time. This suggests something profound, that awareness might not be a late arrival extra in the cosmic story. It might be the mechanism that completes it. If the universe is a vast field of information, it needs a point of view to turn that information into meaning. It needs an interface. It needs a way to collapse the infinite what-ifs into a single, lived this is. It's a destabilizing thought. It suggests that your awareness isn't just a private internal theater. It is a structural necessity. You aren't just looking at the mystery. You are the place where the mystery finally takes a definite shape. You are the witness that allows the universe to be more than just a ghost of a possibility. If we accept that awareness is a structural part of reality, it leads us to a strange question. Why are there so many of us? Why does the universe need billions of different points of view, each with its own specific history, its own heartbreaks, and its own unique way of seeing the light hit a window? If the goal were just observation, one giant cosmic eye would probably be enough. But if the goal is learning, you don't need one eye. You need an infinite number of sensors. Think of every individual life as a localized probe, a unique interface that reality has grown to test out a specific set of conditions. Your specific life is a data point that no one else can provide. The universe knows what it's like to be a star, and it knows what it's like to be a rock. But it doesn't know what it feels like to be you, facing your specific fears or discovering your specific joys until you actually live it. Through us, the universe is experimenting with perspective. It is trying on different skins. It's seeing what happens when it feels love, when it experiences loss, or when it spends a Tuesday afternoon wondering why it exists. We often feel like our private thoughts and internal struggles are small and irrelevant in the face of the cosmos. But in this framework, your internal life is the very front line of universal development. Every time you learn a lesson, every time you shift your perspective, every time you find a way to make sense of a difficult moment, that information is being integrated into the whole. We are a continuity. We are part of a massive distributed memory system. Just as your brain uses billions of neurons to form a single thought, the universe might be using billions of lives to form a single realization. We aren't separate, lonely minds trapped in meat suits. We are the places where the universe is currently doing its most intimate thinking. We are the way the universe remembers its own potential. This takes the weight off of having to find a purpose. You don't have to find a purpose because you are the process. By simply being aware, by simply participating in the struggle and the beauty of being alive, you are already doing the work. You are a localized mind helping a vast ancient system finally understand what it's like to be here. If you are a way for the universe to learn about itself, then your life isn't a performance to be judged or a puzzle to be solved. It is a participation. Every moment of wonder, every difficult conversation, and every quiet realization you have tonight is a tiny pulse of data in a much larger awakening. The weight of being just a speck starts to lift when you realize that the speck is where the seeing happens. You don't need to find a way to make your life meaningful. Being aware, being the place where the universe finally gets to experience what it's like to be alive, is already the most meaningful thing there is. The next time you look at that photo of the deep field, or look up at a night sky that seems impossibly vast and silent, try to remember that you aren't looking at something separate from you. You are looking at the rest of yourself, and it is looking back through your eyes, finally beginning to understand what it has become. Before we go, I'd like to hear how this lands with you. If there was a moment in your life where you felt this shift, where you felt like you weren't just observing the world, but were a part of its process, I'd love for you to share that in the comments. I find that our collective perspectives usually reveal more than any one person can see alone. Thank you for spending your time here with me. It's the most valuable thing we have. We'll walk further next time.